Hello ladies and gentlemen, Top Hat Gaming Man here. If you have been watching my channel for a while and you are one of those 22,000 amazing people, then you'll be well aware of how much I bloody love handheld gaming platforms. In fact, throughout 2016 and 2017 I travelled around our planet, and throughout my journey I had my lovely handhelds to keep me company. Yeah, wanna fly to Australia? Need something to do? Then bring a Nintendo DS or a 3DS or a Vita or a PSP or whatever other modern technology suits your needs to get you through the trip. Anyway, this got me thinking, which handheld perhaps gets overlooked more than others? And to be fair, I recently-ish, done a video on if is the PlayStation Vita underrated. And I'd say in the mainstream it probably is, but at the same time, the Vita has a really hardcore fan base. Like, there's a lot of people who are literally obsessed with the PlayStation Vita and are bigging it up online all the time. I do not see the same amount of love put out there for the PlayStation Portable, despite the fact that it's probably a better system overall. I got my lovely pink one here from a boot sale, I believe, for £30 in the year 2011. This device actually kept me company on a trip to Florida, which was good fun, and I'll talk about some of the games I enjoyed over that period later. But let's talk a little bit more about why this system is somewhat underrated, because to be fair to it, this is the closest system in history to ever beat a Nintendo platform in the handheld market. This device has come closer than any competition ever. So you'd think for that reason people will be putting it on a huge pedestal, but I don't really see that online as much. Like I said, I see it far more with the Vita, and I perhaps see even more people even bigging up the Neo Geo Pocket Color and the Game Gear even perhaps than they do the PSP. So despite the fact that this thing sold so well, why is it becoming so overlooked? I believe this device came out in 2005, so it's been around 13 years now, so that's quite a while really. And one of the most impressive things about this at the time was the graphics. It's something you hear bloody all the time. If something new comes out and it's got good graphics, then that makes a good selling point straight away. To be perfectly honest with you, when I first saw the PSP, I was so impressed with the device and the graphics it could display, I just made the automatic assumption that it was going to kick its Nintendo counterparts' arses. Also, you've got to take into account that Sony had never previously not completely kicked Nintendo's arse either. The PS1 completely dominated against the Nintendo 64, and the PS2 literally sold, I don't even know how many, a ridiculously amount more units than the GameCube, like something insane. So when I saw Sony were coming to the handheld market, I was expecting another whitewash when I first saw this thing. However, there are some points about this device as well which kind of drag it down a little bit, which is why I think perhaps the DS is more preferred by many people. Firstly, I would criticise the loading times on this thing. It's got bloody long loading times for a handheld, like really long. And if you're playing a handheld gaming device, you're playing it for its pick up and play nature. So you're just having a quick bust on a bus or something like that, you want to get into the game. Waiting for loads on a handheld just feels somewhat strange to me, I suppose. Apart from that, the library is perhaps not as iconic as on the Nintendo platforms, but then again, Nintendo have always had loads of mascots on their home consoles, and that's never quite panned out for them quite as well as it has in the handheld market. Again, which is quite strange. Another reason as well why I assume most people would have gone for the DS over the PSP, despite it doing really well in its own right, is Pokemon. Like, all the time Pokemon is around, I believe that game will sell systems in its own right. It's literally that much of an essential game for handhelds, whereas sadly the PSP has no Pokemon. But apart from that, like I said, ultra strong system. We can't forget the fact that this could play UMD discs as well, which meant you could watch bloody movies on this thing. Bloody movies, that was quite cool at the time. You got to remember 2005, the portable DVD player was still quite a fresh product at the time. So this was just kind of a nifty 2-in-1 device where you could watch your movies and you could play your games too. Like, I don't believe the Nintendo Switch even has a YouTube feature on the system, so you can't really watch videos on it in any capacity, which is absolutely outrageous for 2018 when you think about it. So obviously with any system as well, one of the main selling points always has to be the games. The DS, as I said, has an awesome library of games, but so does the PSP. And it doesn't seem to, like I said, have the same fan base, a point I've reiterated time and time again. You can simply see this by just looking at the price of PSP games. Like, DS games are still fairly pricey these days, but most PSP games you can get for outrageously cheap, and the library is really deep too, full of a ridiculous amount of quality exclusives, and also a load of good games as well from like the PS1. So actually that reminds me, you can play a lot of PS1 titles on this system too. So let's look at these. These are some of my favourite PSP games, some of which are exclusive, some of which aren't. I quite like this one, 30-Minute Hero, which is worth checking out. No, that's wrong. Half-Minute Hero is apparently how it's meant to be pronounced. But basically it's kind of a JRPG style game. However, it's in really short bursts. Quite difficult to explain off the top of my head, but basically you kind of have, I believe, something like 1 minute to complete a JRPG mission. It's a really quirky game, and although not a PSP exclusive, the only other platform this is on, to my knowledge, is Steam. So the PSP is the only system you can pick this game up for, and also this is the only physical version you can get of the game too. Quality experience in my opinion. Another one, Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins, a game I've talked about quite a lot on this channel, I believe. This game, Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins, is a sequel to the Ghouls and Ghosts games, and obviously Ghosts and Goblins as well. This is another entry in the series, and just as strong as the others. Arguably more strong actually, as you've got more gameplay options. Like if you play the original Ghosts and Goblins games, they are outrageously hard. But this game offers different difficulty settings and stuff like that. So if you want to have the Ghosts and Goblins gameplay experience, but for a change don't fancy the outrageous difficulty, then maybe try Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins. It's probably the perfect game for someone who wants to get into the series as well, thinking about it. We have here, this is probably my favourite PSP game of all, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Like, how insane is that? A full-blown prequel to Final Fantasy VII, and it's an exclusive for the PSP handheld. Like, how mad is that? It's never received a port to a console. So, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, if you want a physical copy, once again, exclusive to the PSP. A really amazing game, and again, one of my fond memories from my holiday in Florida in 2011. This was the game that gave me a lot of entertainment over that, and again, just mental to see such a big name title staying exclusive to a PSP. Like, everything gets ported to everything these days, so mad. If you want to play this game, get a PSP, or to be fair, you can probably download it on the Vita as well. But again, Vita, PSP, Sony handhelds, there's no console version. Okay, I've got a 2-in-1 for you here. The Loco Roco games. Both really charming platformer-esque style games. Basically, you control them by tilting. I think it was with the L and R button, if I remember. Well, L1 and R1 button, because it's a Sony device. But yes, I can't quite remember, but you either tilt the background or you tilt your... It's not a sprite either, is it? Whatever you call it, your character. So basically, you're like a ball that's rolling around, going down holes and stuff. Again, really cool games, really cool exclusives for the PSP. And finally as well, another really mental one, and the fact that this is the only way you can get a physical copy of the game to my knowledge, Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy IV The After Years. So you've got on here, you've got the original Final Fantasy IV game, and on top of it as well, The After Years is somewhat of a Final Fantasy IV 2. So it's basically loads of small games which are sequels to Final Fantasy IV. So this is the only physical version of this game, as far as I'm aware. I don't think a physical version appeared on other platforms. So if you're like me and you like physical media, then this is the version of the game you would want. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, PSP, great console. I would say it is somewhat underrated because I don't see that many people singing its praises in 2018. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comment section some of your favourite gaming memories with your PlayStation Portables. Also, let me know what some of your favourite games are on the system. I would be particularly interested in hearing about exclusives, because like I said, bloody love getting exclusives. So yes, let's all share our knowledge about exclusives for the PlayStation Portable. Yeah. Cheerio!